There is a sound that nations make when they decide to build their own future. It is not the sound of speeches or press releases. It is the sound of heavy machinery rolling across the savannah, the rumble of massive tires on dusty roads, the steady hum of turbines spinning for the first time. In early 2026, that sound echoed across 1,400 kilometers of West African terrain. From the salt-sprayed docks of Takoradi in Ghana to the bustling heart of Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, a convoy of silver giants moved northward, not carrying weapons, not carrying aid, but carrying something far more powerful: the ability for a nation to light its own homes, power its own hospitals, and write its own future. This is not a story of charity. This is not a story of dependency. This is a story of two African nations deciding that the old map, the one drawn by colonial powers to keep us separate, was never meant to be permanent. If you believe that African progress is built by African hands, tap the like button now. This is the story of how Ghana and Burkina Faso are lighting up the Sahel together. To understand why a shipment of machinery is being celebrated like a returning hero, you must understand what it means to live without steady power. For decades, Burkina Faso's energy landscape was a patchwork of dependency. Being landlocked meant relying on neighbors for electricity. Every political disagreement risked plunging classrooms and hospitals into darkness. Factories couldn't run 24 hours a day. Farmers couldn't refrigerate their harvests. Students squinted at textbooks by candlelight. Only 26% of the population was connected to the national grid, one of the lowest rates in West Africa. But every long night eventually meets the dawn. Under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a new philosophy took hold: the belief that trade must always triumph over aid, that a nation without its own energy is merely a tenant on its own land. And for that vision to become reality, Burkina Faso needed a partner. It found one in Ghana. In March 2025, President John Dramani Mahama traveled to Ouagadougou. It was part of a wider diplomatic tour that also took him to Mali and Niger, a clear signal that Ghana under Mahama would not isolate the Sahel states, but would instead build bridges. Speaking after his meeting with Captain Traoré, Mahama acknowledged the breakdown of trust between the AES states and ECOWAS. But he didn't lecture. He didn't threaten. He committed to relaying their concerns to other West African leaders. He quoted an African proverb: "When your neighbor's house is on fire, you have to help him to quench it. Otherwise, it will spread to your own house." This is the philosophy that guides the Ghana-Burkina partnership. Not paternalism, not charity. Mutual respect between brothers who understand that their futures are linked. And that philosophy has produced results that are nothing short of remarkable. The journey of the Kossodo power plant components began at the port of Takoradi in Ghana. Imagine the scale. Massive engines weighing hundreds of tons, towering generators requiring custom trailers, intricate electrical components that could not be jostled out of place. Specialized logistics teams surveyed every bridge, planned every tight turn in ancient savannah towns, and worked in shifts under a merciless sun. This was a mission where a mistake of a single inch could delay a nation's progress by years. But the convoys moved, slowly, steadily, with the precision of a watchmaker and the strength of titans. And as they rolled through Ghanaian towns and crossed into Burkina Faso, citizens lined the roads to catch a glimpse. Children waved, elders smiled, because everyone understood these machines would soon end the era of the blackout. This journey was made possible by institutional cooperation that has deepened significantly in recent years. In November 2024, the Conseil Burkinabé des Chargeurs, CBC, and its Ghanaian counterpart, the Ghana Shippers Authority, signed a revised cooperation protocol in Ouagadougou. The agreement was designed to address the concerns of transporters, freight forwarders, and drivers, the men and women who keep the corridors moving. It aimed to eliminate harassment, reduce abnormal payments, and ensure that cargo flows smoothly between the two nations. Dr. Kassoum Traoré, then Director General of the CBC, noted that Burkina Faso has long relied on Ghana's ports for goods from Asia and Europe. Given that we truly count on this port, he said, we must sit down and find solutions to the difficulties we face. His Ghanaian counterpart, Kwesi Bafour Sarpong, assured that Ghana would offer guarantees to safeguard the interests of both sides. With the revision of the establishment of the Ghana Shippers Authority, he stated, this gives us more strength to intervene and meet the challenges related to transit and freight. This is what partnership looks like on paper. But what happened next brought it to life. On October 29, 2025, a high-level Ghanaian delegation led by Honourable Johnson Asiedun Ketia, chairman of the board of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, GPHA, arrived in Ouagadougou for a landmark forum. The meeting brought together economic operators and stakeholders from both countries to discuss port operations and logistics. The goal was simple but ambitious: to transform challenges into opportunities. Saidou Sankara, Secretary-General of Burkina Faso's Ministry of Territorial Administration and Mobility, captured the spirit of the gathering. This forum offers a unique opportunity to jointly build a win-win partnership, founded on trust, transparency, and the search for sustainable solutions, he declared. The forum identified concrete areas for action: improving the fluidity of transit operations, digitizing procedures for greater transparency, promoting road safety, and modernizing the fleet of heavy vehicles. The Ghanaian delegation listened carefully to the concerns raised by Burkinabe operators. Issues like the application of VAT on transit goods, the seizure of merchandise, fluctuating exchange rates, and the multiplication of various taxes. They also heard about the human side of the story, cases where drivers had been detained or mistreated during misunderstandings with Ghanaian police. Honourable Ankataya's response was unequivocal. He reaffirmed Ghana's commitment to deepening cooperation and assured participants that reforms were underway to improve port service efficiency, reduce transit costs, and enhance security along logistics corridors. This was not diplomacy for show. This was problem-solving at the highest level, driven by the understanding that when goods move freely, everyone benefits. In November 2025, during the 20th edition of Digital Week in Ouagadougou, Ghana and Burkina Faso achieved something remarkable. The National Communications Authority, NCA, of Ghana and ARCEP Burkina Faso signed a Memorandum of Understanding on free roaming. The agreement means that when Burkinabe travelers visit Ghana and when Ghanaians travel to Burkina Faso, they can use their phones to call, text, and access data without incurring additional roaming charges. Patrice Compaoré, ARCEP's Executive Secretary, explained the significance. This agreement will enable Burkinabe travelers in Ghana, along with Ghanaian nationals in Burkina Faso, to communicate at rates comparable to those in their home countries. Mr. Suleiman Salifou, Deputy Director General of the NCA, emphasized that this agreement would make communication services more accessible, affordable, and seamless for citizens. He also acknowledged the guidance of Ghana's Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, Mr. Samuel Nate George, and the cooperation of mobile network operators in both countries. With this agreement, Ghana successfully completed free roaming arrangements with all its neighboring countries, a major milestone in regional integration. The implementation is now underway, with a planned launch in April 2026. By then, The border will no longer be a barrier to staying connected. Families divided by the colonial line will be reunited by digital infrastructure, built by Africans, for Africans. This is the Africa we don't see in Western headlines. Not victims, not beggars, builders. On January 14th, 2026, Burkina Faso's ambassador to Ghana, His Excellency David Cabre, paid a courtesy call on Ghana's Minister for Education, Haruna Idrisu. The discussions went far beyond protocol. Ambassador Cabre proposed opening Ghana's public universities and colleges to high school graduates from Burkina Faso at capped, affordable fees. This is not charity. It is investment in the next generation of African leaders, engineers and thinkers who will move seamlessly between countries, carrying knowledge and connections across borders. He also requested Ghana's support in improving English language instruction in Burkina Faso through structured teacher training programs and the deployment of qualified Ghanaian English teachers. Minister Idrisu's response was emphatic and visionary. He announced plans for a labor exchange program under which Ghanaian teachers would be deployed to Burkina Faso to teach English, while Burkinabe teachers would come to Ghana to teach French. This initiative will not only strengthen language proficiency in both countries, the minister explained, but also enhance cultural exchange and mutual understanding among students and educators. Think about what this means. A generation of Ghanaian children learning French from Burkinabe teachers. A generation of Burkinabe children learning English from Ghanaian teachers. Growing up with neighbors, not strangers. Building connections that no politician can sever. This is not just education policy. This is the deliberate construction of a bilingual, bicultural future. This is integration from the classroom up. Now the machines are in place. The Kossodo thermal power plant, a $213 million investment by industrial group Mark Cables, is adding 200 megawatts to Burkina Faso's national grid, a nearly 20% increase in generating capacity. These are state-of-the-art engines engineered for high efficiency and reliability, capable of withstanding the demanding climate of the Sahel while providing a steady, unwavering current. Critics sometimes point to the cost of thermal energy, but for a nation in a hurry, the immediate need for baseload power is undeniable. You cannot build a modern industrial sector on hope alone. You need the roar of turbines and the hum of a stable grid. The Kossodo project is a bridge. It addresses the immediate, desperate need for electricity while the country simultaneously develops its solar and hydroelectric potential. The North Core Interconnection Project is developing a 913-kilometer transmission line linking Benin, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Nigeria, expected to deliver up to 600 megawatts of affordable, largely renewable electricity and extend rural electrification to 1.2 million people. The Gutami Solar Plus Battery Project, a 150-megawatt public-private partnership with 50 megawatt-hours of storage, is scheduled for commissioning in Q4 2027. This is not a short-term fix. This is a long-term strategy. Step by step, project by project, Burkina Faso is reclaiming its sovereignty. The international community is watching this transformation with a mixture of awe and calculation. For decades, the script written for the Sahel was one of perpetual crisis and inevitable dependence. Yet, as the silver convoys crossed the border, that script was rewritten by the very people it sought to define. The role of Ghana in this journey is particularly striking. Ghana remains a cornerstone of the ECOWAS bloc, a body that has had a complex and often strained relationship with the alliance of Sahel states. Yet the seamless cooperation between the port of Takoradi and the authorities in Ouagadougou proves that the bonds of brotherhood can transcend institutional friction. It is a quiet but powerful statement. African nations can prioritize mutual development over external pressures. The United States, European partners, and other global powers are taking note. Historically, energy security in West Africa was managed through international aid packages and foreign-owned conglomerates. By securing its own generating capacity through bilateral trade and domestic investment, Burkina Faso is asserting a new form of diplomatic leverage. Every megawatt generated at Kossodo is a megawatt of freedom from the dictates of those who use darkness as a means of control. For too long, the people of the Sahel were told that their geography was their prison, that being landlocked meant being eternally beholden to the whims of others. The arrival of this mega power plant is a silent, immovable rebuttal to that historical narrative. It is the fruit of a seed planted in the soil of dignity and watered by the sweat of African labor. When we talk about Burkina Faso's energy independence, we are talking about more than just a technical metric. We are talking about the reclamation of the African soul. In the lit classrooms of the interior, the next generation of engineers and thinkers is no longer limited by the setting sun. In medical clinics where life begins, the reliability of the grid means that the tools of modern medicine are no longer held hostage by the erratic hum of an old generator. This is the promise made real. It is the legacy of leadership that understood that you cannot build a house of pride on a foundation of borrowed light. Under the steady hand of Ibrahim Traoré, the calloused hands of the worker and the sharp mind of the strategist have met to build a monument not to foreign charity, but to African capability. And none of it would have been possible without Ghana, without President Mahama's vision of a West Africa where coastal nations see landlocked neighbors not as hostages, but as partners. Where the road from Takoradi to Ouagadougou is not just a trade route, but a bond of brotherhood. The road ahead is now illuminated with new clarity. The vision is to see a Burkina Faso that exports its strength to its neighbors, reversing the old, tired dynamic of the importer. We are witnessing the birth of a new energy corridor, built on the principles of the Alliance of Sahel States, and anchored by the enduring partnership with brothers in Ghana. This is the Africa that is rising, not on the backs of foreign donors, but on the strength of African partnerships. Not waiting for permission, but building its own doors. The night was long, the terrain was rugged, the obstacles were many. But as the lights of Ouagadougou shine with a steadiness never before seen, we see a nation that is no longer rising. It has arrived. The light is on, the machines are humming, and the future of the Sahel is being written in the brilliant glow of a sovereignty that can never be extinguished. This transformation did not happen in isolation. It was built on a partnership between two leaders who understood that African progress depends on African cooperation. Ibrahim Traoré provided the vision, a nation that would no longer beg for power, but would build its own. John Dramani Mahama provided the gateway, a coastal neighbor willing to treat a landlocked sister as an equal partner, not a hostage. Together, with the support of countless officials, transporters, teachers, and technicians on both sides of the border, they have demonstrated that when African nations stand together, the obstacles of geography begin to crumble. The road from Takoradi to Ouagadougou is now more than just a trade route. It is a symbol of what is possible when we prioritize dignity over dependency, trade over aid, and partnership over patronage. This is Voice of Africa. We do not narrate helplessness. We document the building of African power, grid by grid, road by road, partnership by partnership. If this story inspired you, share it. Send it to someone who needs to see that the Sahel is not a victim of geography, but a theater of African innovation and cooperation. Subscribe to Voice of Africa. Every week we trace the new lines being drawn across the African map, not the borders drawn in Berlin, but the energy corridors, trade routes, and diplomatic alliances that Africans are building for themselves. And comment below, where are you watching from? Ouagadougou, Accra, Lagos, Nairobi, Paris, New York, London. Let us see the full map of this community. Let us prove that the diaspora is watching, that the continent is listening, and that the old narrative of African dependency is being retired, line by line, light by light, partnership by partnership. The road was long, the dust was thick, but the destination is now in sight. The lights are on, and together we are keeping them burning.